Hey, good morning and welcome back to Fantasy Football Code Red on enravio.com.
Order the Code Red!
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
Dennis
You
from
can't
Minneapolis is
handle the
number one.
truth.
You want to take it?
Yeah,
You're back.
well.
Tell them to hold.
You're back.
Are we on?
Yeah, you're back.
Hey, we're on. I'm still watching our Code Red segment here on delay. I didn't realize we were actually on the air. Hell, welcome back, everybody, to Fantasy Football Code Red. We are going into Week 6. I've got Commander Kevin here to my left. How you doing?
Working the candle at both ends this weekend, so I'm not fresh, but I'm ready to go.
Suck it up. We need a big game today.
Yeah.
And over to my right, the very handsome Porterhouse.
How are you, gentlemen?
Doing well. How are you today?
Good, good. Ready to
All right.
roll.
Let's jump into this. Let's wrap up Week 5 in review. We've got some news, a really sad situation, but we have to report on it, I guess. Adrian Peterson of the Minnesota Vikings, his son, passed away a couple of days ago as a result of I guess you'd call it a child abuse situation. The mother of his son was living with some guy who had a history, actually, of some type of domestic abuse issues, and apparently the child was left in his care, and he was allegedly beaten.
It's a sad situation, a 2-year-old kid. I mean,
There's nothing a 2-year-old could do that would ever deserve them getting beaten that badly.
No.
It just doesn't make
but
any
the
sense.
shocking thing is he's supposed to play.
Yeah, Peterson is supposed to play today. I guess that's a personal decision, but
Everybody heals in their own way.
yeah, I guess
That's
so.
the way it goes down, I guess.
All right, moving on. Julio Jones out for the year, guys.
That's a huge injury.
The Jets. That's
Yeah.
what happens when you play the Jets.
And the thing I don't get it, he catches a 50-yard pass one-handed late in the game.
Yeah.
When did he get hurt?
I don't
If he's
know.
catching a 50-yard pass.
And it's a foot injury. He's having foot surgery, so I don't know.
Well, he had an injury when his draft season, and he cracked the pin, I guess, that was in his
Yeah,
foot. So
yeah.
he could be in for a long rehab.
Yeah.
He is a stud that goes down. Somebody drafted him in one of the first 2 or 3 rounds at the latest. Get him in the
Yes.
3rd round. Most
Yeah.
likely a 2nd-round pick.
That's a big hit for somebody.
That hurts somebody that's probably off to a pretty decent start.
Yeah. And then
big player.
Ahmad Bradshaw also out for the year, neck surgery. Not as big of an impact fantasy-wise, but still a pretty big.
Unless Richardson gets it going, Ahmad Bradshaw could be a bit of a loss for the Colts as they play better teams down the
Yeah.
stretch.
Absolutely. And in an interesting news item, the Oakland Raiders released Matt Flynn. Not that it's that big of a deal, but it's just interesting to me that 6 months after they bring this guy in to be a starter, they gave up a 5th-round draft pick for next year. They gave up a conditional pick for 2015, and they also guaranteed him $6.5 million this year, and they cut him loose.
I'm going to let the commander take this as the Raider fan.
Well, when he throws a ball, there's birds flying off because it doesn't go anywhere. So it was a horrible job by the Raiders. When they got him, I was like, all right, they're a little weak at quarterback, but I mean, he couldn't. If he can't beat out a rookie in Seattle, how are you gonna,
Yeah.
do anything? And they have no offensive line, so it was a mess. I don't know why
This guy got 2 contracts off 1 game. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's possible. Even Scott
You're right.
Mitchell played
Scott
like
Mitchell,
5
yeah,
or 6
yeah,
games
yeah.
and for the Dolphins.
He's the only one you
to
can
do
compare it to,
That's
really.
but he at least played
Yeah.
5 or 6 games. This guy
Yeah.
played 1 game. Matt Cass also got a contract off like a half a season,
Half
too.
a season.
For
He
the
played
Chiefs.
well.
But you're right.
He played well.
No, but Flynn, it was 1 game.
Flynn was 1 game where he set records. I mean, it was amazing. But, oof, my God, he won't be in the league. I mean, you
He's
just can't
done.
keep him.
He's done. And speaking of not being in the league, at least for 4 weeks, Kellen Winslow suspended for PED.
No, I'll let.
I thought he was inactive last week until he caught that touchdown. Because I got to.
Well, here's a guy that predicted he was going to catch 100 balls this year. Now I know why he was so confident.
because he was taking the juice. Honestly, I thought that they just weren't playing him. I mean, because all you saw was Cumberland in the first half.
Yeah,
And they were lining up Nelson, kind of like, in like an H-back formation a little bit here and there. So I thought that he was just inactive, and I just missed the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
He caught that touchdown, and now that's it.
All right. And when you're setting your lineup, keep in mind bye weeks this week for Atlanta and Miami. I think we have our roving correspondent on the air, Christine,
Yeah, let me get him.
on the phone. Dennis. Dennis, you there? I think we lost Dennis. We'll come back to Dennis. Dennis is somewhere. We'll be getting a report from Dennis in a minute. All right, top performers from week 4. Tony Romo.
Incredible.
25 for 36, 506 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Very Peyton-esque.
And very crucial interception at the time he threw.
Romo-esque. That's
Only
Romo.
Romo could get critiqued for throwing for 500 yards, and he got killed a little bit this week
He was
for the
getting killed in
interception.
Dallas.
Yeah, big
No matter
fantasy
what he
numbers,
did.
though. Big fantasy
Not
numbers.
as bad as Matt Schaub, where they're burning his jerseys and threatening his family.
They're coming to his house.
The guy's coming in and cursing him out.
They're coming to his house, for God's sakes.
But Romo had a monster day.
Yeah.
Monster day. Great game last week.
Yeah, good game. Jamal Charles, 22 carries, 108 yards, 1 touchdown, 5 receptions. Had a nice day.
He just consistent
That's
every
what he
single
does.
week.
That's what he does every week.
Yeah. Our wide receiver breakout of this week, man. Alshon Jeffrey. Holy crap. 10 catches, 218 yards, and a touchdown for the Bears.
No, had a monster game. They didn't go to Marshall. They went to Jeffrey. They're both big receivers. Neither one runs. They were talking about it on Thursday. Neither one runs great patterns, but they find a way to get open because of their size.
Yeah.
Jeffrey was.
And he's
Jeffrey
not that
monster.
fast, but he's big. He's got good hands. And I
Absolutely.
think he set a record for 218 yards, franchise record.
He was a guy that probably wasn't on a lot of teams until this week. You know?
He was a big pickup. Yeah.
Absolutely. But again, he came right back down to earth this week. We have,
Yeah. Yeah.
on Thursday night he did nothing. So
Yeah. And our tight end, I think for the second week in a row, we've got somebody not named Graham. Julius Thomas, 9 catches, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Big day.
he
Just,
was open though. Every time you looked, he was downfield, blowing by everybody. He
Yeah.
looked phenomenal.
I think the praising of Monty Kiffin has kind of stopped. We got our phone call back, from what I understand.
Okay, let's see if we can get Dennis. Hold on a minute. Dan, you there?
I'm here.
Hey, Dennis, how you doing, bud?
What's going on?
Nah, nothing much. We got a little late start on the show today, but we want to hear where the hell you are today.
Mall of America Field.
The Mall of America.
Is
And
he at
there's
Adrian
a story that
Peterson's,
goes with it. I don't have a horse in this race today. I try and do the right thing. I got a brother that's a big Viking fan. I have a brother, obviously, as you know from a couple of weeks ago, that lives in Charlotte. They're Panther fans.
Right.
So I figured, what better way to spread the brotherly love and bring the brothers together at Mall of America Field in Minnesota?
Can I get adopted
Little
into
bit I
the O'Toole family somehow?
Well, let me tell you what happened. The Viking fan ended up coming down with something, so he couldn't make the trip. The Panther fan, who lives in Charlotte, had to go away on business, so he's not here. So the guy who's got absolutely no horse in his race, and a guy who loves to be out of the house anyway, is up at Mall America Field by himself with
You're kidding.
absolutely nothing going on.
Oh, man.
But you have an emotional game to watch today.
Yeah, what's the mood like out there with the Adrian Peterson situation?
You know what? No one's really talking about it. No one. It's kind of. It's just, honestly, Mike. No one. I haven't heard anybody really say anything about it. It's just been in the news. It's tragic.
It is. It's really tragic. I thought it'd be more of a, a topic of conversation out there.
There's not a whole lot. Not a whole lot going on. But there's probably more talk about this being the last year of the Mall America Stadium itself, because as you know, right behind it, they're building that brand new stadium with, and for some reason they're deciding to leave it open air as
Yeah.
opposed to closing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're
So-
thinking with that, but how far are they into the construction?
All you can really see right now is a crane, because what they're going to do is, my understanding is they're going to knock this thing down this year, and they're going to play for 2 years at the University of Minnesota.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that.
And that's also
Yeah,
an
and then-
open air
yeah, they're
field.
gonna, because that's what happened a few years ago when that roof collapsed. They played
Yeah.
the last few games over at that University of Minnesota. And let me tell you, I remember watching that last game of the year. I think it was against the Bears. It was a Monday night game or
Yeah.
a Sunday night game. It was cold. It looked cold.
That's going to be the
field was
advantage for the
frozen.
Vikings the next couple of years. is playing in that open air. People aren't going to want to go there in December.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
a big home field advantage in the 70s that they had.
So what are your thoughts on today's game, Den?
Well, I really don't have a call on this game. Like I said, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to tailgate with a few because my work's home office is here, so I do have some acquaintances. I'm going to tailgate with a few people, and to be honest with your audience, I'm heading over to watch the kickoff of the Raiders Chiefs from a local pub at 1 o'clock.
So who do you like in that game?
You know, Chiefs are tough, but I'll be honest with you. I think the Chiefs are due for a letdown. It's a home game for them, though, so it's going to be very tough for the Raiders to pull it off.
Yeah, I think it's going to be
I've
really
been
tough
there.
for the Raiders today. They've got a really unsettled situation in the backfield. It looks like Reese is the only one that's definitely playing today. I don't think Jennings is playing. I don't think McFadden is playing. It's going to be a rough day, I think, for the Raiders.
I agree. The only shot they have is for the Chiefs to pull a stinker out of their bag, which, you know, the last few times in Kansas City, the Raiders have played well. So
Yeah.
Actually, they won
you
6
know-
in a row there.
Terrell keeps running.
They always beat Kansas City in Kansas City, and Kansas City goes to Oakland, beats Oakland all the time.
Yeah.
I know. And you know what they're doing today there, I read? The Kansas City people are all ticked off because Seattle set the new noise
Yeah.
record that they're going for there's going to be somebody from the Guinness Book of World Records on site, and they're going to be trying to set the new record today.
Unbelievable.
So,
I don't know how you can
so
get any louder than Seattle, but
I don't know if you've ever been there, Mike. It's loud. It is
Yeah.
loud in Kansas
I've never
City.
been. But
Loudest stadium that I've been in. I've
Wow.
never been to Seattle, but I do have a fantasy question for you guys because I'm in a quandary here.
Okay.
What do you got?
I need to start at wide receiver, Kenbrell Tompkins, or that guy. I think what's his name, Joe Jones from Green Bay.
Yeah.
James Jones.
James Jones.
James Jones. I'm torn between those two. I don't know which one to go with. I
Jones
have to start one of them.
Jones had a huge day last week, which would lead me to go toward Tompkins. Commander, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I like Tompkins a little better this week.
I have to make it a unanimous call here. I like Tompkins a little bit more. You know, you don't have Gronkowski today. Amendola is back, but I kind of like Tompkins in this game.
The
Yeah, I
funny-
got Tompkins in my lineup, and the only reason why I'm in this situation is because I have Darren McFadden. So
Yeah.
I can't start him. So
The funny thing
But,
about the Saints and the Packers, and even the Broncos to an extent, is that when one guy has a really big game, it's very seldom he has the
big games
I
in
can
a
see
row.
Jordy Nelson or
Right.
Cobb having the big game today.
Yeah.
because Jones had the big game
I could
last
see it
week.
being Cobb this week. Cobb didn't do much last week.
listen, I'll let you guys get back to the show, but I want to throw a shout out. Congratulations to Frank Palmieri on back-to-back General Cup wins. So that's you know, these days in high athletics like the General's Cup, it's tough to go back-to-back. The three-peat will be even tougher.
Dan, I have to join you in congratulating him because we have to do all that we can to keep the general's head, you know, small enough to get through a doorway.
I had thought Moose would put on a better show, but that's too bad. But all right, guys, have a good rest of the show.
All right, have a good day, Dan. Thanks for
Take care.
calling.
All
Yeah, Dan.
All right, take care. All right, let's go into our Man Crush segment. Peyton Manning is still just unbelievably.
He had a bad week. He threw a pick.
He did. He finally threw an interception.
He also rushed for a touchdown for the first time in 5 years.
414 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. He did throw the pick. Still, he's just having an amazing season. Unbelievable season.
Yeah, epic.
Jimmy Graham.
He didn't score a touchdown, but again, he's, you know, and the Bears were trying to double him, and he still was getting his catches, 10 catches in a point per reception league. He had a nice game.
Yeah, 135 yards, no touchdown, but still a very big week. And we talked about Jamal Charles a little bit, but
Had a great game
had
again.
a great game.
Every week. Consistent. All three of these guys are consistent.
He hasn't had a monster day, but he's been so consistent all year.
He has. All right, let's get into injuries. You guys are probably getting ready to set your lineup, so let's tell you what we know about who's in, who's out. Stark's still out. Burleson's still out. Darren McFadden not looking good. He's questionable right now. He did practice, but
I don't see how he plays.
even if he does play, I think he's a big risk today. I don't play him.
Chiefs are good against the run.
Yeah. Michael Vick.
Out. From everything I understand, he's doubtful. But I think he's going to end up being out, and Foles will start today.
Yeah. Arian Foster is questionable, but he's going to play, and I think we'll all agree later he's going to have a big day. Amendola will play today. Fitzgerald, I believe, will play today.
Yeah, it's going to be up in the air, but he should play today.
He'll got it out.
Andre Johnson, they're saying he's a game-time decision, but I'm pretty sure he's going to suit up.
This is the season for the Texans. They need to win today. I think he'll
Yeah.
play.
You're right.
They're playing against a team they can all get healthy against in the Rams, and I
Right.
think they'll play well.
Gronkowski, they're saying no again this week. It looked like he was going to play, and now apparently his doctor advised him to take one more week.
The Patriots, you're never going to know who plays and who doesn't because they're all going to be listed as questionable till the end of the year.
You have no
But
idea.
the thing with him though is it's 6 weeks in. He hasn't played yet.
Right.
When do we say, you know what? Maybe he doesn't play at all this year.
You know what?
Could be.
He's going to play.
I don't know.
He's going to play. He's,
They could be back by now.
I'm just surprised because he sounded like he was making so much progress really since week 1. And, I expected him to be back week 3, week 4, and here we are week 6, and he's not playing.
I think he's going to be a bust the whole year, even if he does play. I think 1 or 2 good hits on him, and he's going to be hurt again. He's been fragile. For a guy his size, he's been fragile the last
Well, you know
couple
what?
of years.
The forearm,
And he's awesome, too. I'm
yeah,
not trying
the
to...
forearm part of the injury I'm not too worried about. It's the back issue that you always have to worry about. Spiller,
He's questionable. It's game time decision at this point in time, but the way that Jackson's playing, it's hard to. Spiller's a first-round pick. It's hard
Yeah.
to bench him. At the same point in time, if you have better options, you have to.
You know what?
I would lean toward playing Jackson today. Hopefully you.
if
Hopefully you
given the
pick both.
choice between Spiller and Jackson, I'd play Jackson today.
Absolutely.
Ryan Matthews, questionable.
Even if he does play, he doesn't give you much. I
doesn't
mean, that
give you
game's a
much.
big game, but inside the 10, they go to Ronnie Brown. They throw the ball to Woodhead. He's not really a factor.
He's a total waste.
Yeah.
Total waste.
Ridley-
I have him on one of my teams.
Ridley's questionable. He did practice on a limited basis this week.
Supposed to play.
He's supposed to play.
Commander's a big fan of his 3 yards a pop.
Yeah, not a big fan.
Calvin Johnson,
That's a big one.
that's a big one. And
We'll have to keep an eye on that.
yeah, we'll hopefully get some information before the end of the show because right now he's very much up in the air.
That might have been the biggest non-play in a week in fantasy history last week.
Scrambling,
Everybody
people.
scrambling at 11 because everyone thought he was going to play, and then out of nowhere he wasn't. I don't think there was ever a bigger player that didn't play that was supposed to play since I've been involved in fantasy.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
interesting.
Miles Austin back today.
Yeah, and that could hurt Williams because Williams had a nice game for Dallas
It's
last
going to hurt
week.
Williams.
Huge pickup for everybody last week.
Yeah,
He was
but I
top
think-
of the waiver wire. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I've been hearing that they're going to put Austin right back into his regular role. And obviously, Bryant's been going off, so I think Terrence Williams.
But he
takes a big
still
hit.
has some value, Terrence Williams, going forward. He
Still
does.
has some value. And you know what? If Austin can stay on the field for the
Yeah,
rest
he
of the
never.
season,
He's got to get through a game.
it'll be a
first.
miracle in itself. All right, let's quickly go through our studs, and sleepers. We'll start with last week. Last week was an interesting week. My stud quarterback last week was Aaron Rodgers against Detroit, and I expected that game to be a shootout. Unfortunately, the Lions didn't hold up their end of the bargain. Rodgers went 20 for 30 with 274 yards and 1 touchdown. I expected a lot more.
Oh, yeah, 2 touchdowns.
Oh, did he have 2?
Yeah, 2 touchdowns. Both to James Jones.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So he still had a good game.
he had a good game. I expected more, though. I really thought that game was going to be a big shootout.
Detroit's defense played better than I thought they would, and I don't think that Green Bay had to really press on the gas because Detroit was no threat offensively last week.
Yeah, they just keyed on Bush, and that was it.
Yeah. How about you?
My stud quarterback was Tony Romo last week, who was a true stud until the last 2 minutes of the game. I mean, he was a monster last week. Honestly, I thought that he'd be able to pick on the Broncos to the outside, and he did. I was stunned how easily he did it. I didn't expect him to throw for 500 yards, but I thought he'd have 350 and 3 touchdowns, not 505 touchdowns. So here you go.
Unbelievable. How about you, Commander?
I had Phillip Rivers. He had 2 touchdowns, 400 yards passing. So in fantasy-wise, he had a great game, but he played really bad. And the Raiders really took it to the Chargers. I was surprised how well the defensively they played. But fantasy-wise, 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's a stud day.
My running back was Darrell Richardson. I had high hopes for him last week playing against Jacksonville. Didn't quite pan out. 13 carries, 48 yards, dud.
The commander pointed out last week, Zach Stacy was
Yeah, I
going to take a
like
bit of the
Stacey
role, and he
as a
did.
pickup last
He had
week.
about 80 yards rushing, just about.
And going forward, you have to assume that he's going to be the starter until he fumbles or does something.
Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more on our waiver wire segment. But yeah, Zach Stacy's a guy you probably want to target.
My running back was Ray Rice. 27 for 74. Not huge numbers per carry, but he had 2 touchdowns. He also caught 6 balls, so in a pass per reception league, gave you a lot of points last week. Had a big game, and he fumbled once.
But going forward, though, that's a good sign because he didn't look well. You know, he was playing well, or the team was playing well.
Yeah.
But they featured him a little more last week and got him more involved, and he had a nice game.
He did.
I had Frank Gore, who really should have had a better game than he did. He had 17 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown. But they were winning 34-3. They called off the dogs. They brought the backups in. You know, Kendall Hunter was in there, and
Even Michael James a little bit.
Yeah. My receiver last week was Randall Cobb. Unfortunately, the big day went to somebody else in that game. Cobb wound up with 4 catches, 35 yards. He did, however, have 72 rushing yards, which made up for his lack of production on the receiving end.
Yeah, for me, you know, I had Larry Fitzgerald who did nothing. I keep waiting for Fitzgerald to break out, and he's
You've
just
been
not
going
doing
to the
it.
well with him.
I
a
went
lot.
with him, and he
Yeah.
had a great week 1, and he's been awful since. So 3 for 43, not a good day.
Mine, I nailed on the head. I had James Jones. I just thought he was one of the 3 receivers that was going to have a good day. And again, they alternate every week. That's why we say we don't like Jones this week.
Right.
But 4 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown. So.
Nice. My tight end was Greg Olson. Again, I was kind of expecting a bigger day out of him than what I got. He got 5 receptions, 79 yards. Not horrible, but would have liked it if he would have made his way into the end zone.
But that's an okay day in a point per reception.
Yeah, it's okay.
I had Gates, 7 for 74, no touchdowns.
Wasn't really involved in the game. I don't know if you watched the whole game, Porterhouse. But
At 11:30, I did not.
yeah, I was up till 2:30 watching that like a lunatic.
I did not.
But he
I
was
watched him
not
at the
really
first
involved. He threw to his receivers a lot in the game. So my tight end was Jared Cook, who I'm starting to lose faith in right now.
Yeah, I am
he
too.
had such a monster first week, but really hasn't. He got a lot of targets even, and Kendrick is scoring. Kendricks, sorry, has scored the last 2 weeks, and he hasn't. So I'm worried about him going forward. So.
All right, my duds last week. I did much better with my duds than I did with my studs, so hopefully you took my advice last week. My quarterback was Colin Kaepernick against Houston. I thought the Houston defense was going to give him fits. They did. He wound up 6 for 15 for 113 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 carry for 13 yards. Dud.
Yeah, I love Kaepernick too. I didn't go with him though because you did, so I went with Schaub, who was equally awful, and he couldn't do anything against San Francisco. And
That was
it
a
was
good
just
one.
kind of an easy layup to take last
Yeah,
week on that
yeah.
one.
And again with him, what is going on? 15 pass attempts. You know what's going on in San Francisco?
1 carry?
Yeah, he's not running the football. It's
Not
like a
running?
totally different player.
Yeah.
Really, fantasy-wise, he's a backup at this point.
He really is.
Until they change the offense.
He really is.
I think so too.
I had Alex Smith, who's been playing well this year, but he had a poor game. You know, he had some yards and stuff, but they featured Charles, and the Kansas City defense was all over the field. So.
No, absolutely.
I had DeMarco Murray. I wasn't expecting him to be that much involved in the offense against the Broncos. I thought it was going to be an air attack. He only got 12 carries to 43 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 reception. He was a dud.
Yeah, I mean, I had 2 running backs. I mean, Chris Johnson had an awful day, 10 carries for 17 yards, but then he catches a 49-yard touchdown on a
even
shovel pass on a
he didn't-
scramble.
Yeah, he didn't even catch a pass. He
Yeah,
just,
it was
you
a
know.
scramble. He got a 49-yarder, ended up with 4 for 63. So it ends up looking respectable. But he can't run the ball right now against decent defenses. I also had D'Angelo Williams listed. He did nothing, 12 for 39, and 2 catches for 30 yards. Didn't do much.
Going back on your DeMarco Murray, they basically just said we're not running the football the rest of the game because he
Yeah.
had 40 yards at the half.
Right. No,
So,
but I kind of thought that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
you know.
And they led, and they didn't run
Yeah,
the
they
ball.
just refused to run the football. I don't know what. It cost me a little bit on that. I had Sproles as my dud, who had 2 touchdowns the prior week. He did nothing. 10 yards rushing, 30 yards receiving. So
Nothing.
that was a dud.
My receiver was Anquan Bolden, again against Houston. Wound up with 2 catches, 21 yards. Did score a touchdown, but not a great day for Bolden.
No,
No, that was he had a
great one.
touchdown, so that kind of hurts your dud, but he did nothing.
Right.
Really.
I had Reggie Wayne, who had 6 for 65 and a 2-point conversion. He didn't do anything until the 4th quarter. He had like 2
Yeah.
catches going into the 4th quarter. I looked like a genius for a minute, and then kind of went away there at the end. But it's still not a big day for Reggie Wayne.
No, and I had I had Nate Washington, who, again, scored 2 touchdowns the week before. That's my trend usually with the duds.
Right.
Somebody that's not that good scores 2, figure he's going to come down. He only had 3 catches, I think, for 30 yards, so he was a dud.
All right, my sleepers last week. I was expecting Eli to have a big day against the Eagles. I don't know what to say about Eli.
What can you?
I
And again, he had a bad game Thursday, too.
and another bad game Thursday. The guy's got 15 or 16 interceptions already on the year. Next.
Yeah. I had Sam Bradford, who didn't look good, but threw for 222 and 3 scores. Still, there's something about Sam Bradford which leads me to believe that he's going the way of a David Carr, where he'll be a backup, and this is his last year,
He will
and the
not get
Rams
a-
will draft a quarterback next year.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much over.
Right.
I mean, because he's just not progressing. That's what I see every week.
No, and again, it was a bad. You're talking about a bad Jacksonville team.
Yeah.
That should be
Yeah.
a team you light up, and he had a solid game, like you said, but he wasn't anything great. I had. We're on tight ends, right?
No,
no.
a quarterback sleeper.
Oh, quarterback sleeper. Did we do dud tight ends?
No, he skipped it, but we'll get to
skipped
that.
it?
I'm sorry, I need to take credit for Kobe Fleener with his
Doing
2
that.
catches, 15 yards, big dud.
I had Witten, who was a stud. I thought that they would pick on the Broncos to the outside. I didn't realize he was going to throw for 400 yards on the outside and still throw for 120 over the middle. So my bad on that, but Witten had a big day, 7 for 21 and a touch.
I had Tony Gonzalez as a dud. He had point per reception league, 10 for 97. That's a good game.
But he didn't
So
get
that's
in.
Definitely not a dud, but he didn't score. But targeted 14 times the last 2 weeks, and moving forward with Julio Jones out,
Yeah.
Gonzalez is a factor again. He's
Yeah.
going to get a ton of balls.
As a disgruntled Jet fan, just watching the end of that game. Now, when the Patriots did it the week before, where they put 2 men on him
Yeah,
and let him off
didn't
the
call
line,
anything.
it was a great defensive play. The Jets do it; they throw 2 flags on us. What does Belichick have on this league where he doesn't get called for anything? It drives me crazy. Anyway,
Yeah,
the
it does drive you
inconsistencies of the
crazy.
officiating just drive me nuts sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I
about
agree
that.
with you, though. That actually cost me because I was going against Matt Ryan. I wound up losing by a point because of that
Yeah.
holding call. The game was over.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
Jets are running the clock out.
Who's your quarterback sleeper this last week?
I had Terrell Pryor, so he had
That
a
was
great
good.
game. Could have been better. I'm forgetting his name now. Number 7, Denarius Moore.
Denarius Moore, yeah.
Caught a
game.
touchdown, and they called it back because he had his foot out of bounds. So he could have had 3 touchdown game, and he looked great. And he was falling a lot because the Raiders play in the A's stadium. So he was falling a lot. He could have had some more rushing yards, but he had a really nice game. I'm impressed. Moving forward, Terrell Pryor is definitely a guy you can fill in as a bye week and on a matchup.
Yeah.
Thing, so I like Terrell Pryor.
My sleeper last week at running back was David Wilson, and as go many of my picks, he wound up with 6 carries, 16 yards, did score a touchdown, then left the game with a neck injury.
So it goes.
It was off to a good start, though.
He was.
And then
I had Rashad Jennings, who did 10 for 41. If you'd have told me Rashad wasn't going to do anything and they'd win, I would have told you no way.
Yeah.
well, they sat him out the whole second half
They
with
did.
the hamstring strain, so that didn't
10
help
for
your cause.
41, and then he stopped. No catches.
I had Blount on New England, who I thought was going to have a nice game considering Ridley was out. He got off to a good start, and actually I averaged 5 yards a carry, but he fumbled. And that was when you fumble with Belichick,
You're done.
hit the sideline.
And the
So,
funny thing, we told you last week that weather was going to affect him. Brady was going to have a tough game.
at the end it was.
And
yeah.
it really did. And the Bengals are just a different team defensively at home than they are on the road.
Almost
Yeah.
Seattle-esque.
It's
at
really
home.
amazing to watch
Yeah.
how far they fall apart when they go on the road compared to how dominant they look at home. First time in 50 games, no touchdown for Brady.
Yeah.
They couldn't get anything going last week. For
I love when big players. I want Breeze next to get that streak stopped.
Yeah, me
I love
too.
when guys like that get their streak stopped.
I like Breeze. All right, my receiver was Jason Avant. Thought he'd have a big game against the Giants. Only wound up with 3 catches, 33 yards.
I went with Blackman on Jacksonville, 5 for
Nailed it.
136 in a score. And here's the thing that's interesting. Jacksonville might have one of the top 5 pairs of starting wide receivers
They
in the
do.
league
Absolutely.
with Shorts and Blackman.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Blackman's a stud, and Shorts is really good.
Absolutely.
And they're better with Henny, and Gabbert got hurt again. They have no defense, so they win games. And they're a 28-point dog this week. But they have the potential with MJD still decent enough in the backfield to be somewhat explosive offensively
Yeah.
the last 10 games of the season.
Yeah.
And those guys are going to be great garbage time receivers.
That's what it's
Shorts
always
got you
behind.
one
Yeah.
week. I remember you had him as a dud, and he had nothing until
Yeah.
the end of the game. And
Right.
yeah.
Blackman did all his in the first half last week, well,
Yeah.
most of it anyway.
All right, who's your receiver?
I had Sidney Rice, who was a total non-fact. I think he had 2 catches, whatever.
Right.
Golden Tate actually had the good game. I missed one of the 2 I was going to pick. I went with Rice. I missed it on that one. But I did have Blackman listed too as well.
Okay, let's wrap up our tight ends, and then we'll go to a commercial break. My tight end last week, my sleeper was Brandon Myers. Didn't do much.
He was asleep.
He's
2 catches, 35
and he had a
yards.
bad game Thursday night too. So
Yeah.
he's not a guy you really want on your roster at this point.
Not at this point.
Jeff Cumberland, 3 for 79 and a
Nailed
score last week.
Nice job.
And if they would have thrown to him in the second half, he would have broken 100. But he has a burst that the Jets don't have in a lot of other positions offensively. I mean, Bilal Powell's a nice player, really is.
Right.
But the receivers don't have that extra gear all the time.
Especially
He's a
without
guy
Holmes
that,
in the lineup.
yeah, no, this is a guy that can get open, and when they use him, he's pretty effective.
And I also laughed. I read a quote, with Rex Ryan. Everything out of Rex's mouth is pretty much, you just throw it away
Right.
in one ear out the other. But he said Jeff Cumberland is a stud tight end. That's what he said. I couldn't help but laugh.
That's a bit strong, but
he looks good though. I picked him up in one of my teams. So.
He's someone to pick up.
Yeah.
All right, listen, let's take a commercial break, and we will be back with our studs, and sleepers for this week, so stick around.
We have a couple questions.
In Revio. Back to the music in 60 seconds. In Revio. In Revio. Back to the music in 60 seconds.
Termite Marine Contracting offers all stages of dock building, including brand new docks, repairs on existing docks, pole setting, dredging, and decking. Termite Marine Contracting covers the south shore of Long Island from Massapequa to West Islip. With more than 25 years experience, full crews, and the right equipment for any job. Got a job you want done right? Call Termite Marine Contracting at 516-449-4567. That's 516-449-4567, or follow us on Facebook. Termite Marine Contracting. When you want it built right. If you want to increase business, you've got to advertise. Contact Resonant Voiceovers for an effective, affordable commercial spot. Our production, audio, and editing personnel will create top-quality recordings to promote your business. Start getting internet exposure for your business today, right here on Enravio.com. To contact Resonant Voiceovers, go to the Enravio Advertisers and Sponsors page and click on Resonant Voiceovers. Resonant Voiceovers, when you want your message to resonate.
Riches Bay Realty, celebrating 50 years. If you're selling or listing your home, land, or business, call Mauritius Bay Realty of Mauritius, Long Island, New York. Contact Jerry at 631-878-0003 or go to MauritiusBayRealty.com for more info. Glitz and Glam Boutique. Book your little princess's party today. Glamorous birthday parties. Girls' Day out packages. Hair accessories and jewelry. 5A Canal Street, Center Mauritius, Long Island, New York. Phone 631-909-7428.
Hey, we're back here on Fantasy Football Code Red. Let's get right into our studs, and sleepers for this week. I'm going to start off with my quarterback. I'm going with Cam Newton this week against the Vikings. They had a bad week last week in Week 5 against the Cardinals. I think that they have a good chance of turning it around this week in Minnesota. We talked about the game a little bit. Vikings defense can't stop anybody right now. I'm also concerned for the Vikings this week with the whole Adrian Peterson thing. Is it a distraction? Are they on their game this week? Or do they use it as a motivating factor?
Right,
I don't know. It could go either way, but I like Cam Newton this week.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is Matt Castle, how much confidence do you really have?
Right.
I like Phillip Rivers. I think that Rivers, I like RG3 and Phillip Rivers going back and forth, but I'm going to lean toward Rivers this week. I just think that he plays really well at home.
Yeah.
I think we have a nice little shootout brewing between the Colts and the Chargers on Monday night, and I'm going to say Phillip puts up another 400-yard game.
I'll go with Russell Wilson this week. On the road, he's pretty much done nothing. But at home, he's played well. He had a 4-touchdown game earlier against Jacksonville. So I like Russell Wilson to have a nice game today.
Okay. All right, my running back this week is Noshawn Marino against Jacksonville at home. Let me tell you, the stars are in alignment for Marino this week. I mean, they're playing against the worst team possibly in the history of football. These guys are bad.
28-point underdog.
They're a 28-point
Never seen that in my
favorite in
lifetime.
this
Not
game.
mine either.
You know, Peyton's going to do what he's going to do. They're going to get, you know, a big lead up on Jacksonville. They're going to win the game by 30 points easily. I think Marino's going to get a lot of touches after they build up that lead. You know, Jacksonville allows 160 rushing yards per game. Marino's going to have a big day.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm going to go with Trent Richardson, and it's either now or never. The guy's averaging less than 3 yards a pop.
And hasn't
Trent-
looked explosive yet either. I don't know what it's
There's
going
one
on
run
with him.
where he looked like he could have got the distance, got tripped up. Outside of that, he's done nothing.
And Donald Brown scored the touchdown.
Yeah, Donald Brown's been
And
the
the
guy.
two-point conversion.
He's been the guy. I'm going to go with Trent. I think that Trent, and the Chargers are pretty good against the run, but I think they're going to soften them up a little bit, and Trent will have a pretty good second half. That's why I'm going to lean with it.
I'm going to go with Arian Foster, but I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to go Giovanni Bernard.
Okay.
I mean, a little more bold prediction. I love this kid. I really do. And, you know, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis does get goal line a lot, but take away. But this kid is so much better than Ellis. It's just a matter of time for me that he breaks out. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's this week against the Reeky Bills defense.
Okay. All right, my wide receiver this week, Torrey Smith against the Packers. No Clay Matthews for the Packers. They're giving up 290 yards per game. The defense has been struggling. It's going to get worse without Matthews, I think.
Oh, without Matthews, it's a totally different defense.
Yeah, I
It's
think
They don't
gonna
get a
be
pass
bad.
rush.
I think Torrey Smith has a big day.
I'm going to go with Demaryius Thomas. I'm going to say that Demaryius Thomas did not have the huge game last week. I mean, they all had gay games.
Well,
but
he
I mean,
did get a 30-yard pass called back on a hold.
He did.
So,
I think that Peyton will make sure his stats get evened out with the others this week.
and he's had good games at home as well.
Yep, he's
So,
a monster, and I don't think that the Jags have anyone that can cover him.
No, they
So
don't.
I'm going to go with Demaryius.
I'm going to go Pierre Garçon. Last time they played Dallas in Dallas, I think it was a Thanksgiving game last year. I'm not sure. He had a great game, and they had the bye week, more time for RG3 and him to click. I'm going Pierre Garçon will have a really nice game today.
I agree. My tight end this week was my dud tight end last week, Kobe Fleener this week against the Chargers. Chargers are giving up big yardage, receiving-wise.
On everybody. Even the bad teams are moving the ball in the Chargers.
Yeah, I just think Fleener comes back with a nice week this week.
I'm going to go with Olsen. I'm going to go opposite of what you had last week as well, because you had Olsen last week.
Yeah.
I think he'll have a pretty good game against the Vikes. I think that the Vikings have a little trouble stopping those guys in the middle of the field. They have trouble stopping everybody everywhere. And I think I agree with you on the Cam Newton having a pretty good game, and I think Olsen will be a big part of it.
Okay, I'm going to go with Jordan Cameron, who's turned into a stud at this point. But he had a soft game against the Bills last week, so I'll say he has a nice game with Whedon looking for him, featuring him this week.
All right, duds. As much as the stars are aligned for Marino this week, I think the stars are not aligned for Matt Stafford this week.
Especially if Calvin doesn't play, which we haven't seen if he is.
Oh,
or he isn't.
yeah, that was part of what I was going to say. I mean, you know, he's facing the Cleveland team has been very surprising this year. They're leading in the AFC North. Defense has been very strong. In fact, I think they've given up the least amount of fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Maybe no Calvin Johnson, definitely no Burleson.
I just saw Calvin Johnson is active today.
He is active.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
that's-
Johnson will play. I still think Stafford really struggles today.
And Adrian Peterson's active too.
Okay.
I'm going to, well, you know what? I'm going to say this in a tongue-in-cheek way, but I think Peyton Manning will be a little off today simply because they're going to be up so big.
That's bell-worthy.
No, he's going to still throw a couple touchdowns. I just don't think he's going to tear it up. I mean, the guy that I think will have a really, really tough guy, I think Roethlisberger will have an awful day today, and he'll be the guy I go with. I just think that Manning, anyone that's expecting the 404 touchdowns, I think they'll be up too big at that point. I think that Jacksonville will close
I
it up.
still
as the
say
game
I
gets
think
closer.
Manning's still going to get his 350 to 400 yards, just 3 or 4 touchdowns. He won't throw a pick. Then they'll turn the ball over to Marino and let him run wild.
Yeah.
I think the Jet front four is going to just dominate the Steeler front line, and I think Roethlisberger will be on his ass a lot today. On his
Okay.
butt a lot today, I'm sorry.
Are we allowed to
Yes.
say?
I don't know.
Foul.
Thing.
Yeah.
Correct me. I
Sorry,
apologize.
Christine.
I like Stafford as a dud as well, but I'm going to go Andy Dalton, who just looks awful and is killing A.J. Green this year. So even though they're playing a bad Bills team, I have no confidence in this guy. I think maybe they'll feature the running game a little more this week, and I'll have him as my dud.
Okay. My dud running back this week, Maurice Jones-Drew, put him on your bench. He's going up against the Broncos' run defense, which is right now the best run defense in the league. The Broncos are going to get off to a fast start and a big lead. They're going to have to throw the ball. Drew is just going to be invisible today.
And he's been invisible the whole year. So.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Marshawn Lynch, and only because I think that the Seahawks are going to blow out the Titans. I think that because he's banged up, I think that you'll see a decent day out of Ronnie Turbin. I think he'll get more carries than Lynch as this game goes on, and I think that Lynch, he may get an early score, may not, but I don't think he's going to have more than 15 carries in the game.
Okay, that's not bad. I'm going to go Pierre Thomas. Again, the guy that is not a great player, had a 2-touchdown game last week. He could take a hold on the starting position there, I think. You know, Ingram's a non-factor.
Yeah.
They use Sproles a lot, though. That's why you can't really trust Thomas. So I'll go with him as a dud this week in New England.
I haven't seen a Heisman Trophy winner look this bad since Ron Dane.
Yeah,
I just figured I'd say that for my friend, the Admiral, right next to me.
Thank you for that.
I haven't seen a running back, look this soft, and Ingram just doesn't. Ingram can't win that job. I guess an unheralded guy.
Yeah, he's a
Ron
waste.
Dane. All right, my receiver this week, Larry Fitzgerald. Not that that's a huge reach at this point, but he's going against the 49ers this week. They're only allowing 189 passing yards per game. There's no run game whatsoever in Arizona. I think it's going to be a terrible day for the Arizona offense and Fitzgerald.
How are they 3-2? I have no idea. Defense is
Winning
how they're
ugly.
3-2.
Yeah.
They win ugly and they win with good defense.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Deshaun Jackson for one reason only. He was dumb enough to open his mouth and say that Darrell Revis could not guard him.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, it's
another
like,
foul.
and
What are you
Jackson,
thinking?
Jackson is faster than
He's
Revis.
faster than him, but that's
no
it.
doubt about it. But Revis knows how to position himself, put his hands on you, and I don't know if Foles can put the ball in the tight windows that Jackson will
I've
leave
got
that
Jackson
today.
on my bench this week in one of my leagues. That's how confident I am with him this week against Revis.
They're going to have to line him up in the slot to get him open. I just think it was a dumb move by Jackson.
That was a bad one. I have T.Y. Hilton, who had a tremendous game last week. And moving forward, I like Hilton as a receiver. I just think, more action for Fleener this week. Reggie Wayne has a better game. Trent Richardson has a better game. I love Luck as well this week. But I'll go T.Y. Hilton to have a soft game this week.
Okay. I'm going to say the same thing about Antonio Gates as my tight end. I don't think he's going to be invisible. I'm not expecting a big week from him this week. Maybe, 4 or 5 catches, 50, 60 yards. Maybe he'll get a touchdown, maybe not. I'm not liking Gates this week.
I got your Michael not being a factor this week for the Pack.
I like that.
I think that
On the road, too.
on the road, I think that the Ravens will take him away. Drops a lot of passes as it is, so his number of targets gets dropped, and I don't think he'll have a big day.
I'm going to go with Julius Thomas as my dud.
2
Figuring
touchdowns.
that, again, coming off a 2-touchdown game, you figure Denver's going to be ahead, like the Admiral was saying. And, he could have like a 4-catch, 40-yard day with no touchdown, and that's what I'm going to say he does.
All right, let's get into our sleepers. As we do that, we're going to take a chat box question here. We've got Vinny from Brooklyn wants to know James Jones or Terrence Williams this week.
I'm going to go with James Jones in a matchup of 2 guys I don't like.
Yeah, I don't like either one this week.
But James Jones, I think Terrence Williams is the 4th option, and I'm stealing a line right now from the commander, from the Admiral, I should say.
Yeah,
4th option this week for Dallas behind Witten and the 2 starters. And I think James Jones, you never know who gets open in Green Bay. I think that Rodgers kind of spreads it around. I think Jones has a chance to get open deep, and I don't think
has a better chance of scoring a touchdown.
I agree.
That's why you got to go
I'm going
Jones
to
there.
agree as well. I think that I don't like Terrence Williams this week. I think with Miles Austin being back and Bryant just on fire, Witten on fire, I think your best hope this week with Terrence Williams is a long touchdown. I think, even though Jones had the huge day last week and we don't expect him to have a huge day this week.
We've been corrected, though. It's Mike Williams.
Oh, Mike
He wrote
Williams.
Williams.
He just put Williams on there.
And now
okay.
he said Mike Williams. I don't mean to cut you off, Admiral.
Oh.
But in this
Either
matchup,
way-
In that matchup, I still say I go with Jones.
and I'm going to go with Mike Williams.
Well, I don't know.
He's banged up, too. That's why I don't like him as much.
He is, but I think
Vince,
he's
stick
gonna
with
play.
James Jones, Vince.
If Williams is playing, I play Williams. Just check the walkthrough. I think he's got a better chance to score.
Yeah, I'm not sure I got.
He also has a tight end question.
He
this
has
week.
Davis or Cumberland for tight end this week.
How many- Is that Vernon Davis?
I'm assuming.
All right.
You got to play Vernon Davis.
Yeah,
you
you
can't.
have
better
to
than
play Vernon
Cumberland,
Davis over Cumberland. But if it's not Vernon Davis, we do have some guys to throw out there for you. I like Garrett Graham this week. I think
He's a starter.
I think Garrett Graham could do some damage for you. Who were the other guys we were talking about on the break?
I know that you like McGrath, correct?
Yeah, McGrath has been really Smith's go-to guy at this point. Oh, Avery's had some moments, but McGrath, I have him starting in one of my teams because I have a bye week. So never know. He's not a bad
Did
fill-in.
you let us know if it's Vernon?
Fred Davis.
Davis.
Come
Fred
on,
Davis.
Vince. Come
Vince, help us out.
Vince,
on. Killing us.
come back to us, Vince.
On this matchup, I go with Cumberland. I go with Cumberland over Fred Davis.
Absolutely.
I feel like Paulson's getting as many throws to him as Fred Davis is in Washington. I would lean toward Cumberland. He'll be the only game in town, basically a tight end for the Jets.
We got to tell Vince, it's like having chins in a phone book, you know? Come on, Vince.
I mean,
Davis
these are
and
names like
Williams.
Davis and Williams.
Yeah.
If it was a name like Fleener, we have it.
Can we get a first initial, please?
The other guys we talked about, Zach Miller on Seattle, usually plays pretty well at home. And obviously Cumberland,
Bell.
who we mentioned, and Bell.
Actually, Fred Davis at this point is not really a guy you even want on your team. So, Vince, upgrade the backup tight end on that.
Yeah. All right, my sleeper quarterback this week. I went really deep with my sleepers this week. My quarterback is Mike Glennon versus the Eagles. The Eagles' defense has been pretty porous against the pass, 326 yards, an average of 2.2 touchdowns per week. I think Glennon could have a decent day.
And also coming off a bye, more time to work with everybody as a first-team guy. So that's a good one. I like
It's
that.
a very bad Eagle D. I'm going with a guy who's the highest paid player in football, but yet it wasn't a top 12 draft in Joe Flacco. I think that Flacco is going to have a pretty good day against the suspect Green Bay D. I think Flacco should put up over 300 yards and definitely get a couple scores.
I like that, too, especially without Clay Matthews in there.
No pressure
There's
on him.
nobody going to be in his face. You got to have a nice day. I'm going to go Matt Schaub in desperation time. He has been, if you have the other team's defense, you pick them up with Schaub at this point. 3 weeks in a row, right? Pick six?
Yeah.
But this is
4 weeks in a row.
4 weeks in a row.
He did
Okay.
set the record. He broke the
4
three
weeks in a row.
record.
There you go.
The only
He's
guy
been
worse
awful.
has been Eli.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not in Houston, he hasn't.
But I'm going out that Houston is do or die at this point. They're going to be the Atlanta Falcons if they lose this week. So I'm saying that Schaub has a nice game. Otherwise, you know what? It's time for him to get an unemployment line because he's not going to be the quarterback anymore.
Yeah. If you're looking for a running back this week, my deep sleeper this week is Danny Woodhead against the Colts. He's averaging 64 total yards a game. He's got 3 touchdown passes in the last 2 weeks.
Very active.
He's been very active in the offense. Matthews is probably not going to play with the concussion. The Colts are going to get out ahead early, which is going to limit the amount of carries that he may get. But I think he's going to be very involved in the passing game. In a PPR league, I like Woodhead this week.
Yeah, that's a nice one, PPR especially.
I got there's 2 guys I like and go back and forth. I like Turbin, but I'm going to go with Fred Jackson. I think Turbin will have a decent day just because I think they're going to rest Lynch because they'll be up. I think they're going to blow out the Titans. Fred Jackson is a guy that runs really, really hard. The Bengals front four not as good on the road as it is at home, and I think that Fred Jackson will have a decent day and at least get in the end zone once for you.
Okay, I'm going to go. I like, Zach Stacy. We talked about him a little bit, but he has a tough matchup against Houston, so I'm going to go with Ellington on the Cardinals. Figuring they're going to be behind a little bit too. He's great out of the backfield, this guy. And moving forward, I like him eventually to take the job. He's not a very big guy, so that could hurt his cause.
But Mendenhall's been horrible.
But Mendenhall, he stinks.
Last week, Mendenhall 17 for 41, Ellington 11 for 83.
Yeah.
Do the math and tell me who's
There
the
you
more
go.
explosive player.
Yeah. All right, my wide receiver this week, as I said, I like Cam Newton, and as a sleeper, I like Brandon LaFell. The Vikings defense is just, poor.
Yeah,
at
you can't say
best.
anything.
You know, I mean, I'm trying to think of a word that's
Superlatives.
yeah, that might be descriptive enough to to put that into perspective. But they're giving up 326 yards passing on average per week, 2.5 touchdowns per week. I think LaFell gets in the end zone this week.
Throwing to him more this year than he's had in the past, too. So
I'm in the same game with you and the same team, actually, and a guy you wouldn't consider a sleeper earlier, but has done nothing all year, which qualifies Steve Smith now as a sleeper because he's yet to cross the 60-yard mark or so this year.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I honestly think that this is the game where Smith gets a little bit healthy. I think that he'll catch at least a score, and one of them will be a big score. So if you get extra points for deep plays, I think this could be the game he excels in.
I'm going to go with Kimbrel Tompkins. I also had Keenan Allen listed on Monday night, figuring they're going to be behind. But I'm going to go Tompkins without Gronkowski in the lineup again. I like him. And he's a pretty good receiver. You know, you watch him in these games. He's against Atlanta. He looks spectacular.
Right.
You know, he's a nice third receiver to have on your team.
And next to Dobson, it looks like he has incredible hands.
Yeah, Dobson
drops every pass thrown to him, it seems like.
Tight
end.
My tight end, Garrett Graham. We talked about him a little bit more with Vince, a little bit earlier with Vince. He's getting the start today. Owen Daniels is out. I like him in that game against the Rams. The Rams have allowed 11 passing touchdowns already this year. I think Graham can step in and not be Graham-like in terms of his other namesake, but I think he'll have a decent day.
As for Vince, if Graham's available in your league, pick him up and drop Fred Davis.
Please.
Just throw it out there.
For me, tight end's an interesting one this week because two guys that are starting in every league right now, and Clay and Gonzalez, are on buys this week. It's only two teams on buys, but both these tight ends are on somebody's team.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard. I'm going a little deep here with Zach Ertz. I honestly feel like
Good sleeper.
He's a deep sleeper on a team with three tight ends, and I think that he's the one that emerges today in Philly. I think he has a decent game, and I think he starts to take over the position a little bit from Selleck as we go forward.
I have McGrath listed as my sleeper. We talked about him just before, but I'll go with Hausler on Arizona, figuring they're going to be behind a little bit, and Palmer does love the tight end. So, and he's looked a little better lately. He's coming on. Not saying he should be a starter or a backup yet on a team, but he's coming on a little bit. He's a guy to watch out for, Vince.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen an offense look worse at 122-6 than watching the Arizona Cardinal offense last week. They win by 16. That's how good the D has been.
Yeah, D's been great.
All right, a quick run around the waiver wire here. We talked about some running backs that you might want to look at picking up this week. Zach Stacy being one of them. Brandon Bolden.
Bolden, he has no explosion, but he's a good back out of the backfield. So until, what's his name, comes back on New England. I'm forgetting his name already.
Ridley.
No, the guy that got hurt earlier this year. Why are we forgetting his name?
I'm blanking on it.
Yeah,
Vereen? No.
Vereen, yeah. Shane Vereen got hurt, so he's kind of taken his role in the offense.
Yeah.
But he's.
And I think Vereen actually will be back.
Week 11 this time.
Week 11, I think it
yeah,
is. Yeah,
week 11.
Brandon Jacobs is another guy. I mean, he's not starting today, but to stash away on your squad.
For at least for a few weeks, because we're not getting back Andre Brown until
week 10 or 11.
10 or 11. I mean, the Giants' backfield is a mess right now.
And he looked great.
I have to tell you something. I watched that entire game, and I haven't seen Brandon Jacobs run like that in 2 or 3 years.
You see
He
what
used to tippy toe all the time.
No, but he ran with purpose.
Yeah.
The guy, he didn't go down, first hit.
Something to prove. He was almost one of those.
The 4-yard touchdown run was about as impressive a run as I've seen Jacobs
carried
have.
3 guys.
He carried guys.
He wanted to run last week. He wanted to run the ball last week.
Now, let's be honest. Bears are playing without their 2 defensive tackles.
Right.
And Williams got hurt for the season.
I'll give you
that game. And he had a better second half than the first half, but he still ran hard.
The other positive in that, too, 22 carries.
Yeah.
The Giants really haven't given anybody more than 10, 11 carries the whole year. And, again, Wilson, is he coming back? Is he out for the year?
Yeah.
So Jacobs is a must-add.
When you're on second opinion, it's always nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And Wilson's on second opinion now out in California,
Yep.
so we'll see what happens.
All right, finally, wide receiver, Keenan Allen. If he's out there, man, grab him.
He's from Cal University, was a big-time receiver in college. So if he's available, you pick him up, definitely.
After watching the Dallas secondary last week, Hankerson could be a guy that's sitting around.
Yeah.
Again, it's
couple
not a
off
huge
weeks.
bye week this week. I mean, Julio Jones, Roddy White, probably the 2 guys, Mike Wallace, maybe the 3 guys you might have had. And so it's not like there's 6 teams out this week or anything like that. That's coming up soon. But if you're going to focus on somebody like a Hankerson could have a big day. He's the kind of guy that has the speed to get behind the Cowboy D. So it's something to look for.
And there's a guy we haven't talked about. I'm going to go to my team, the Raiders. But Denarius Moore has played great this year, and he's available in some leagues. Not in my leagues, but in some of them. And he's a guy I would definitely add.
And one last running back to look at. Goodson finally played last week for the Jets, and he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm saying in deeper leagues where you need to have someone in the next few weeks, he's a guy that's going to be able to catch balls in a point per reception league.
He's got better hands than Powell too.
Yeah,
So.
he's the best pass receiving option the Jets have out of the backfield.
No question.
And he might be a guy that if you're really stuck, he's a guy to look at.
All right, listen, we only have about 5 minutes left. Let's just quickly run through some sit starts. RG3, I like him this week. Start him, good matchup against the Cowboys. My sit quarterback of the week, Bradford against Houston. Do not like him.
No.
No, I mean, for me, my start this week is, I like Flacco. I think Flacco's a start. I think Flacco's a guy that you want to make sure that you're utilizing this week. My sit, I mean, I like Stafford the same way you did earlier, and I think Roethlisberger's a sit just because I think the front is going to have a little bit of a hard time this week.
Anybody?
Okay. No, we talked about Dalton. And I was saying start of the week, emergency situation is Matt Schaub. Okay. Only an emergency.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple of running backs to look at. We talked about Fred Jackson. Start him. If you need a flex or a second running back, he's a good play this week. The guy I sit this week, Chris Johnson. He had a good week last week. Scored a touchdown for the first time. Stat-wise.
Yeah.
And he was
didn't
involved.
play well.
And he was involved in the passing game. He really didn't play that well, but he seemed to have a pretty decent game. I don't like him this week at all against Seattle. I sit him.
That's where running backs go to die in Seattle.
Yes.
Pretty much. I mean, again, Marshawn Lynch was my guy to sit only because he's banged up, and I don't think they're going to give him the full brunt. Mm-hmm. He gets one hard hit. They can't afford to lose him going down the stretch.
Yeah.
Start at running back. I mean, I had Richardson down, obviously Peterson. I think Foster's actually the guy to start this
Foster's
week.
the guy, yeah.
I think the Ram defense does not stop the run at all.
No Sean Marino we like too, but we were talking about Ronnie Hillman as a pickup.
Yes.
He could have an active game today. If you have an emergency situation where you have to start somebody as a flex, Hillman wouldn't be that bad.
Yeah. A couple of wide receivers to talk about. I like Vincent Jackson this week. Even though he's got Glennon as his quarterback, I like him this week. I think the best part of his season is yet to come.
I mean, again, I think Colston has a big game this week. I think Wayne has a big game this week. Those guys are guaranteed.
Yeah, I like
Demarius Thomas. Guys to sit until Whedon shows me something. I'm going to say sit Josh Gordon. Let me see if Whedon can actually throw the ball around the yard a little bit today. Detroit did a pretty decent job in pass coverage last week, except for James Jones.
Yeah.
And Deshaun Jackson, just because of his big mouth, I would say that if you have a better option. Other guy is Dwayne Bowe, has yet to cross 50 yards this season.
But has scored both his touchdowns at home this year. So I'm starting him on one of my teams because he's home. If he's on the road, I'm not playing him.
No, he's just not getting open.
And here's a guy that, as I just said, Vincent Jackson is going to have the better part of his season going forward. Julian Edelman has had the best part of his season as far as I'm concerned. He's done. He is playing against New Orleans this week, but we've got Amendola back. Tompkins, I think, is going to be ahead of him at this point.
Dropping more passes, too, lately.
He dropped a touchdown last week, which is not, a thing that Belichick likes to see. It's not a thing Brady likes to see. Gronkowski will be back probably next week. I'm not liking Edelman for the rest of the year.
And the thing about Edelman is he's Amendola, but he's not as good as Amendola. They're the same player.
He's a poor man's Amendola, which
So
doesn't
if
help.
Amendola's playing, there's no reason to play Edelman.
There isn't.
You don't need two guys running into each other on these short crossing patterns.
Yeah. Quickly, tight ends. We talked about Heath Miller this week. We like Heath Miller. Not liking Brandon Pettigrew this week.
Cleveland gives nothing to the tight ends. Don't use him.
Don't use him. Don't like him. Anybody else?
But one other player as a pickup in a waiver wire was Harry Douglas. Just if Julio Jones is
Yes,
out, we didn't
absolutely.
touch on him.
He's a must-add.
He's a must-add because he gets open. He's always somewhat
Pretty fast
effective.
guy.
He's a quick guy. Roddy White is banged up on the other side as it is. Harry Douglas is going to be, him and Tony Gonzalez are going to be the primary guys.
They
He's
have
going to
to
be
be.
getting single coverage for the most part.
Yeah.
And they have a bye this week, so you might be able to pick him up while no one's paying attention. So I would jump on it.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, before we wrap up, we don't have time to actually go through our host head-to-head segment this week. I will say, though, that...
Do you have the standings up? I wanted to see the results there.
Yeah, we
Just in
had...
case
Yeah,
we
you
have
messed up last week.
discrepancy, yeah.
Well,
The commander doesn't trust your math.
I thought I had a better week than that.
well, you tell me if I made a mistake, but I had you at 141 points, me at 150, and Porterhouse at
I paid him
152. If my math is correct, that leaves Porterhouse at 7-3.
Nice job.
Me at 5-5, and the commander holding up the
Bringing up
fort
the rear
there
so
at
far.
3-7.
That was a good week for all of us, though. We all had good
Yeah,
good
we
weeks.
We were all
did.
close, actually. It's
So
just the way it worked out.
we'll get more into that next week when we have time. But for Fantasy Football Code Red, for Commander Kevin, Porterhouse, and the Admiral, we'll good luck in your games this week. Christine, behind the glass, thank you very much for your wonderful, fine work, and we will see you next week on Fantasy Football Code Red.